Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's IIBA event. My name is Abe, and I'm the chair for IIBA Brisbane. Now, before we get started, I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. We at Brisbane branch acknowledge the First Nations people and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to announce a few changes within the Brisbane branch. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Helene's dedicated and hard work as the previous chair. And thank you for choosing me as the new chair to lead these wonderful people here in the Brisbane branch. Also, I'd like to just thank Anastasia for her efforts and leadership in the education and certification space. Now, Helene and Anastasia will now work as the general committee members within our branch. We also have a few new members within our committee. They are Lilu and Kalpa. So they will be our new general committee members and helping out all of our 4 tribes within the Brisbane branch. And Naveed is our new education and certification coordinator at Brisbane. Lastly, I'd just like to acknowledge and thank our departing members who are Anne-Marie McCarthy and Christopher Dormer. Thank you very much. Now we have some good news. IIBA Australia is doing some really great work globally, and we've been recognized with the following awards. So Australia has been awarded Chapter Sustainability of the Year for Asia Pac for 2020. Anne-Marie has been awarded Volunteer of the Year for Asia Pac. She currently works as the Adelaide branch events manager, with Gary being a finalist for this award. And Gary's our events director for Australia. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you for everyone who has attended the BA Professional Week last month. We believe it was a great success, and I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Out of that week, we had 458 attendees, 50 presentations from 52 speakers. They were from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, Europe, and USA. Just note, for those who have attended that week, these presentations will be available for the next 6 months. An update from Brisbane branch. Thank you for all those still participating within our community. It's really heartwarming to see IIBA Australia still move forward with online initiatives. Here at Brisbane, we've achieved online study groups and also participating and hosting national online events like tonight's. Now, tonight's speaker comes with great recommendation. His name is Iman, and he's a director at Agile Analytics. Now, Iman is a regular speaker at Microsoft seminars in Australia and overseas. He has 15 years experience as a BI consultant and is also a certified Microsoft trainer. He's also actively involved in Sydney as the co-organiser for the Sydney Power BI group. Thanks, Iman, for your time. Now, before I hand over to Iman, I'll just make mention of a couple of housekeeping items. The first one being polling questions. Just so Iman has an idea of everyone's knowledge and experience, I'll launch the polling in a few moments, but we've created a few polling questions. If it's okay with everyone, can you all go into the polling section and just answer the questions listed there? The second item is any questions you would like to ask throughout this presentation. Can you please record your questions in the Q&A section, because we have the opportunity to ask that throughout the presentation. If there is a question you like, can you please like them in the Q&A section, as those will be answered first. And Kita, our events coordinator, will then relay those to Iman. And finally, tonight's slide pack will be sent out to those people who complete the post-event survey. So you don't have to record these. That's it from me. So I'll hand over now to Iman, and I'll also start the polling questions for you to complete.
Thanks, Abe, for the introduction, and thank you, IIBA, for the opportunity to have me in this session tonight. Good evening, everyone. My name is Iman Eftekhari. Just quickly share my screen. So just wanted to add a couple of things that we also run a number of events, including Sydney Power BI user group that I know that's in Sydney, but these days everything is online. So if you want to join us, we have monthly sessions that we run online, and this is a good opportunity to understand about what's happening in the BI space and Microsoft data and AI. So I share the link with you if you want to join. Every session that we do is free, and that could be a good opportunity if you can maybe attend some of those. Uh, the company that I work for is Agile Analytics, a Microsoft Gold partner. We deliver end-to-end BI and data analytics solutions, mostly for large corporates and government. But if you have any questions about that, share my contact details and you can contact me after this session. So tonight I'm going to talk about BA and what that means to be a BA for a BI project, because it's very important for BAs who work in BI and data analytics space to understand to understand the specific characteristic of a BI project so they can do their job more effectively. So first, I want to talk about some of those skill sets that you need to have. Then I will share some of the techniques, and then I will talk about BI and specifically Power BI, which is a Microsoft BI product. Okay. So these are the skills that I think are very important for any BA, but specifically for people who work in the BI space. First of all, you need to have very good domain knowledge. And by domain knowledge, I mean if you work in a maybe bank or financial services institution, it's very different to when you work for healthcare or non-for-profit organization. And that's different to retail, FMCG, and so on and so forth. So you need to know your domain very well as the business function, if it's HR, finance, marketing, operation, because each of them have their own processes, language, terminology, and you need to understand when someone talks about XYZ, what that means in that domain and in that language. Same for data, because BI is all about converting data into meaningful information. So decision makers can make informed decisions. So you need to know what type of data you need to handle in the BI project for that specific company. The third one is technology. And I know that some BAs are more on the business side, but you also need to understand how technology works, what are the latest features in each technology that you work with, being SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, anything that you work with. You need to have a bit of understanding about that technology, features, limitations, and so on and so forth. And the last one is process. By process, I mean two things. One is the business processes, because eventually you want to embed your BI output into that business process. And second one is the process of, working with the team to deliver the BI project. Okay, so I will touch on some of those points tonight, but mostly will be on the technology and the process. So we will cover those two items in the bottom. Okay, so let's start with some of the techniques that you need to use in a BI project. When you work in a BI project, the first thing you need to understand is what are the outputs of that project. And in most cases, these are the executive dashboards or some analytical reports that you want to build for this company. Before you start anything, you need to always understand why. And by why, I mean the objectives and the purpose of those reports. Because in most cases, I see BAs who go to stakeholders and they always ask about what do you want to see, what data you want to have, how you want to see this, but they never get to the equation of why. And the why is always the action or decision. So you build some reports or dashboards to make them actionable so people can make informed decisions. And if you don't know those decisions or actions, you can never find the right solution for them. Once you know why, then you can get to how and what, which are things that we will cover a bit tonight. So 3 important questions to ask. One is, who is this visualization designed for? The second one is what decisions do I want my users to make? And the last one is what actions do I want people to take with these insights? So very important to know those. Based on that, you can then go back and then find the source of those information, the business logic to convert it to meaningful information. Okay. Then you need to classify your reports or dashboards. Are you building some executive dashboards for strategic decision making? Or these are some analytical reports, or you are building some operational reports? Because each of those have their own characteristic. Like an exec doesn't care about details. They just want to know at high level what's happening in the organization. They want to have 360 view, holistic view of the KPIs and metrics that are important for them. But analytical reports are different because they look at historical trends. They want to understand what behavior your customers may have, some anomalies that you can detect, and some maybe prediction of the future. And operational reporting are mostly about what's happening right now and the details of that. Okay, so once you know what type of output you are working with, then you can ask right question. Then you can, break down requirements into maybe logical grouping to understand what is the high level summary that you want to show, how to support it with some maybe historical information and something that might be a bit more details. Okay. There are a number of frameworks and process frameworks that help you to do this. And one of the most famous one is this cross-industry standard CRISP-DM framework, which is for, this is not new, first of all. This has been for ages, but just recently, because of this data science and data analytics becomes a very hot topic, people using this, I guess, more often. And this is like a very similar to any agile process, very iterative. You start with business understanding, you need to do some data discovery, then you need to do data preparation, modeling, presentation, validation, deployment, and then you close that and you go to the next iteration or next phase of the project. Okay, so my point is that get to know some of those industry standards and frameworks that organizations are using for delivery of those uh, BI and analytics or data science projects. As I mentioned, it's very important to do everything in agile way. And why is it that? Because 9 out of 10 people who are your stakeholders, they don't know what they want from the beginning, and they don't even know what's possible. So you need to, build something, showcase, do some rapid prototyping, and then get feedback, and then iterate once, twice, or multiple times to get the requirements right. Okay, so never expect to get all the requirements up front. It's almost impossible to do this. And even if you do this, by the time that you build, things can change and people can tell you, oh, I didn't know that this is possible. Can I also have this and that? And this is something that they expect you to, enhance and improve the solution. But if you do all the requirements up front and then have this 100 pages of documentation, it will be really hard to change, right? So always try to do this by learning about the audience needs, do some rapid prototyping with the help from maybe some developers, or a good BA should be also able to do this by himself or herself. Get some feedback, and then you can build the actual technical component, and then that could be another iteration to get feedback. So ask all the questions: who, where, what, why, when, and things like that. You can do some whiteboarding, and that's a very good idea to do some maybe whiteboarding session with your audience. I see that a lot, that we work with number of stakeholders, and you may go with, to a meeting to one of them, you may get something, and then next day with another person, you may get opposite direction. So it's best to get everyone in the room, have a whiteboarding session, maybe use some storyboarding or plan, so you can have a clear picture of what they want and guide them through this journey, that this is what you may need to do. And uh, in most cases, a lot of those requirements will be easier to clarify when you have everyone in the room. So as part of that, you need to come up with those user stories, or the questions that they want to ask from their data. So it might be that, okay, I want to know my total sales for a selected year, region. Let's say you're building a BI project for sales team. So they may ask you about the sales by region, by maybe category. What are the top selling products? What is the most, I guess, profitable product, and so on and so forth. So every time you hear those questions, capture them, and then you can come up with those, items that are you measuring, and we call them measures. So these are things like the revenue, units sold, maybe profit, and so on and so forth. So this can be very helpful for a developer to, or data modeler, to capture them and then build them in the model. And this is part of your job, to capture all the questions and divide them into measures, which are the numbers that you want to aggregate. And the second type of items are what we call attributes or dimensions. So these are things that you want to describe the measure by. So what that means is that you may want to know your sales by location, by date, by product, channel, campaign, etc. So every time you hear this, by that, that means you're talking about an attribute of the dimension. So again, I don't want to get into too much technical details, but it's important for you to understand what is measure, what is dimension, and ask right question from business. So eventually this can be converted into a data model by your data modelers and BI consultants, who can build this into what we call like a star schema or some data modeling techniques that they do. Okay. So eventually from that question, this will be converted into a data model that is optimized for analysis. And this is something that uh, is common in every BI and data warehousing project. Okay. Then you get into maybe more details about each report, and you create maybe a list of questions, or part of your report spec. You need to know what is this report purpose. As I said, the objective, the purpose of that. Who owns this? And that's important, because the owner should be the decision maker for a lot of those, logic and the final UAT that you do. Also, for the governance of that, the owner needs to be decision maker. Who should get access to this, or what change, whatever change needs to be approved by the owner. Target audience is important. You want to know who will be the end user. Could be like HR managers, salespeople, maybe CFO, etc. The type of report that I mentioned, like is it analytical, is it exec level dashboard, or operational? And data refresh frequency, like is it near real time, is it daily, hourly is okay, or so on and so forth. And you can see a number of other questions like the access level and source of data and things like that. So once you know the reporting requirements, then you start doing the data mapping, which is, okay, I know that you want this report with 5 charts, and they may have 20 data elements. You can list it maybe in a simple Excel spreadsheet, and say that, okay, now we need to understand where the source of each data element is. Maybe some of them come from their ERP system, some of them from a data warehouse or operational system that they have. Maybe they have files in Excel that you can then go and find. This is part of the process, that you need to go and do source mapping and find where this source of truth is, because you may find that this data can also be in this system or that system. So which one is the correct one? What is the source of truth? And if there is any mapping, you need to also identify that and say, okay, part of data is in this system, part of them is in the other system. You need to merge them, mesh them up, and do some data mapping. Okay, so this becomes again very iterative approach, because as you go into this process, you may identify some issues. Could be data quality issue, could be some logic that different business teams may have a different definition or different calculation for something, then you need to all come up with an agreement between everyone that when you say profit, how do you calculate it? When you say my conversion rate is XYZ, how do you come up with that? Is it a marketing definition or sales, or we need to come up with something in between? Okay. So that's something that you go with the end user needs. As I said, could be about accessing that, cleaning data or data quality, mesh up. That means you may have multiple systems and you need to do some data mapping and understanding the mapping requirement and the logic. And then you get into the how to visualize it and what is the best way to share this. Is this a push delivery that you send by maybe email, PDF attachment, or you want people to come and see the report in the pool environment? Okay, so all of those are important, and a good BA needs to know end to end, not just going to business and ask some business questions. The BA needs to know what are the options in that technology for instance, to give people access or to do sharing of the report and so on and so forth. Okay, any questions so far? And Kita, maybe you can check the question list.
Hi, Iman. There is one question, which is, what is the best technique to capture requirements for BI reports? Is user story recommended?
Yes, so as I mentioned, in Agile environment, you do user stories, but don't limit yourself to those, techniques or terms. Whatever that works best in that company, for that culture, for that environment. Because we see this a lot, that some people go this side of extreme or the other side, and they try to bind themselves to some frameworks and methodologies, and they said, no, that's against Agile or Scrum or this and that. Just be open-minded with that. But in most cases, as I said, a very good iterative or agile approach can be very helpful, because most of the time, as I said, the business doesn't know what they want exactly. They have some vague ideas and say, okay, I know that I want a dashboard to do this and that. But when you show them the first version of the report, then they start thinking that, oh, okay, so maybe I can also do this and that. So they see the possibilities and they start giving you the real requirements. Okay, so do the prototyping, share something, even it could be like a whiteboard, as I said, or some storyboarding, and then you get some feedback and then add it to the requirements.
Thank you, Iman. There's another question on the requirement on, what would a good requirement look like?
Okay, so a good requirement is the one that at the end user says, okay, I'm happy with that, right? So you can't really know that before you delivering this. So it's not that you know from the beginning that this is a good list of requirements or not, unless you get to the end of project, right? So that's why I said this iteration or iterative approach is important. So you can get maybe 5 requirements, build it, show this, and then say, okay, that's validated, and then you go to the next set of requirements. Okay.
There's another one which is talking about what are your preferred data visualization tools?
Okay, so you will get the answer very soon, because I'm going to present about Power BI, which is a Microsoft tool, and I will explain why I choose Power BI. But at the end of the day, tool is tool. So don't limit yourself to one, or the important part is to deliver the information and insights that end user wants. But based on each organization's requirements and maybe the type of technology that they use, like when we go to a client and we see all they do is in Microsoft platform and they use Azure and all those things, we say, okay, that makes sense to go with Microsoft platform. But if you go somewhere and everything is in AWS, you don't want to force them to go to Power BI just because you know Power BI, right? So at the end of the day, it's all about the customer and what's best for them. So it could be the cost of licensing, could be the integration with their platform, could be what's more comfortable for them, because they may have skill set in-house that you want to build something that they can support and enhance. So there are a number of factors to choose the right tool, but obviously for me, I've been doing Microsoft BI for past 15 years or more years, and I prefer Microsoft Data Platform.
We can take the rest of the questions a bit later, Iman.
Sure.
If you want
Yeah,
to.
let's do this. Okay, thank you, Ankita. So let me talk about data analytics and BI, and I will cover some of the, maybe topics from challenges and how we got to this point now, and then I will show you Power BI as a Microsoft product. Okay. So these are some of the typical challenges that people face in their day-to-day working with data. In most cases, it's very time consuming to get data from maybe one or multiple systems. In organizations that you go, you may see that people do this manually by doing some data manipulation in Excel, copy pasting from this system to another, from Excel to maybe something. And there's always a lot of manual work that people do. It's also very, tactical, because when you only have access to one or two data domains, you can only see part of your big picture. For strategic decision making, it's important to have all data that you need, which is not always easy, because systems are siloed and it needs a lot of IT involvement, and it could be very expensive. That's why the solution here is that a tool like Power BI can help you to get everything in one place, transform, clean data, and have a full collaboration so you can make data-driven decision. If you think about the data insights maturity, it always starts with some basic operational reporting. So these are the system reports that can give you something like, maybe in your finance, you can go and check your P&L, your profit and loss, or balance sheet, or cash flow. You go to your maybe HR system and you can understand how many employees you have, what is the salary average of, maybe age range and things like that. And then you go to marketing and you can get something like how many leads you generated, what is your conversion rate, and so on and so forth. But then this is all question about what's happening or what's happened. Next level up is advanced reporting. And that's when you do some more advanced analytics to understand, okay, why did it happen? This could be some analysts to go and understand, okay, maybe we have this much revenue, but where did that come from, and how do we, maximize that? Should we invest in such and such, product or system, or maybe we pay more for XYZ campaign? And this is something that then you need to have multiple systems combined. You may need to get some data from CRM and then maybe combine it with some finance system and other things that you have to get a better view of what's happening and why did it happen. The next level up is advanced analytics, and that's where AI, ML, or machine learning, data science come to play, and they can help you to understand what will happen. This is predictive analytics, or what action should I take next? What is my next best action, or NBA, if you heard of that term. So the purpose of the goal of a tool like Power BI is to take you from that beginning step, which is operational, to more advanced reporting and eventually advanced analytics. Okay, but it's not overnight process. So it's a journey that a lot of organizations are still in the beginning, and even when you go to some very large organizations, you'll be surprised at how how far behind they are with their journey, because it's, as I said, it's not easy, and it needs a lot of changes in the organization, not just technology. So let's talk about the evolution of BI, and this is important to know how we got to here from maybe 20 years ago or so that I was involved in some of those projects. It was always about, getting big funding and budget for IT to do some BI project, large data warehouses or the BI projects that we are taking, 1 year, 2 years, and a lot of them failed to deliver good business value. According to Gartner, there's a very high percentage that I don't remember, but it's like 80% or so, they failed to deliver the good business value. That caused the second wave of the BI, which was self-service BI. That was when some of these niche players in the market, like Tableau, Click, they came to market and they started targeting business analysts to use those tools and say, hey, you don't need to spend millions for that BI project. Just buy my tool. This is a nice shiny toy that you can tap into your data and see some reports and dashboards immediately, which was very, revolutionary, and a lot of business users started using those. But they also had some challenges, especially with the governance and control and security. But now we have the third wave, which is democratizing BI, or putting BI in hands of everyone in the organization so they can make better informed decisions. Okay, so if you think about those 3 steps, you still have corporate BI, so it didn't go away. You still have large data warehouse projects. You still do self-service BI, but eventually now we have these platforms that are not just for some IT technicians or for some data scientists. It's for everyone. So when I talk about Power BI, this is a tool that is basically built for everyone in the organization. Okay, so according to Gartner, and this is Magic Quadrant for BI and Analytics that you are probably familiar with, every year Gartner publishes this report around Feb, and this is the latest one that is positioning Microsoft on the top right side, which is the leaders section. So I don't know if you can see this in my screen, but this is something that shows Microsoft and Tableau are top leaders, and there's a big gap with everyone else. Even Click now is, far behind in that case. Again, I don't believe in just having a report like that and just look at one chart and make decision. That's why there's, like any other solution, you need to find the right fit for your organization. But there's a comprehensive report behind that that talks about pros and cons of each tool. What are the use cases that you may go with this or another? But at the end of the day, as I said, there are a number of factors, and it always comes down to cost, the ease of use, the existing environment that the organization have, and maybe some of their functionalities. But now a lot of tools have very similar functionalities, so it's less about what features or functions they have. Okay, so let me talk about Power BI and what Power BI is. If I ask you what is Power BI, maybe a lot of you answer that Power BI is a self-service visualization and reporting tool in Microsoft platform, which is correct, but it's not a complete answer, because Power BI is a full end-to-end platform, including ETL tool. So if you don't know, ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. You can do data modeling, you can do visualization, and you can share this report using Power BI service or website with people inside and outside the organization. And it's part of a bigger picture in the Microsoft Azure data platform. So you can easily integrate Power BI with a number of other components in Azure to make it high scalable solution. Okay. So with Power BI, you can tap into data from any type of data source. Could be structured data, could be any database that you may have, Oracle, SQL Server, IBM DB2, could be an ERP system like SAP, could be file like Excel, CSV, XML, JSON, or so on and so forth. But you can also do some data cleansing, transforming data, merging, combining, and then more importantly, you can automate it. So a lot of people who come from Excel background, they love this feature because they don't have to do this manual process anymore. They don't have to go to the same painful process every end of month to build a finance dashboard for the CFO, right? So they do it once and then that could be automated for the next time you want to refresh data. So if you come from Excel background, Power Query is also in Excel. Now you can do exactly the same thing in Excel to do all those data transformation and also data modeling, which is similar to what you do in Power Pivot if you're familiar with that in Excel. So that's when you're actually building some data models based on fact and dimensions that I mentioned to you. And next step is to do data visualization, which is just simple drag and drop canvas. You can build interactive dashboards and reports without writing a single line of code. Okay. If you are familiar with maybe R and Python, which are very popular within data scientists, you can also write those codes, or you can extend that, to those features. And the final step is once you have a report you want to share with people, so you can do this in Power BI website or service, which is a web-based environment managed by Microsoft. So this is like a high-level view of that. It's a Microsoft cloud product, part of Office 365, but you have to pay license separately. I can answer a question about licensing if you want, or chances are that your organization already use or have this license and you can use it for free. You can connect to that from any device, including mobile apps for Android, iOS, or if you still use any Windows mobile, you can use it as well. All right, so the process of Power BI building report is important for you as BA, because you need to know how these steps are, or what are these steps. The first step is to connect to a data source, which you create connection using Power Query, and I will show you in a minute. Next is to do some data modeling to maybe build relationship. If you have multiple systems, you can create the data connection or relationship. And then you add your business logic using a language called DAX, data analysis expression. Similar to Excel functions, you can do some business calculation in Power BI. And then finally, you can build your visualization, make some good looking interactive report, and then publish it to Power BI website. So I just, before I go to the demo, is there any questions, Ankita?
Yep, there are quite a few questions.
Oh, okay.
May I also remind everybody that you have the opportunity to upvote existing questions, and we'll choose the most interesting ones. I'll take up top three questions for you, Iman. One of that being, what is a typical challenge in any BI initiative that you would have faced, and how did you handle it? If you could share some tips.
Okay. So that's like a topic for maybe a full session, but maybe the highlighted ones for me, as I mentioned, people sometimes or project managers are not familiar with how a BI project should be managed and run, because they think about it's like a normal software development project, which is like you may do this in a certain sequence. But realistically in BI, nothing is clear from the beginning. As I said, this is the main challenge, that you never know what exactly you will end up with, right? So you may have some vague ideas, and unless you do iteration, you never get to that point. The second challenge is a lot of times we get this resistance from different business teams or people, because they may think that BI is going to, make them redundant, because once you do some of those and automate it, then that person who's been doing this Excel report for past 20 years is going to lose his or her job, right? Because that person has been doing just copy pasting this from that system to this tab, creating a pivot table, and that's what he's been doing for past many years. So you get a lot of resistance from those type of people. And it can be very political in some cases. The other thing is data quality, because in most cases, once you show this in the dashboard, people start questioning data and say, "Oh, why is this not match with what I expected?" And you will see a lot of data quality issues and things that then you have to go back to the source and then ask the source owner to fix it, or the way you capture data needs to be changed, which sometimes cannot be an easy process. And finally, the last one that I can point out is BI is not just about technology, and I have a slide for that. In many projects, they just think about how to deliver the end result, which could be some dashboards, reports, or a data warehouse. But they don't think about how to embed it into the business process or the decision-making process. And that's one of the reasons that even if you deliver a fantastic solution, they may never get adopted. Okay, next.
Thank you, Iman. I think another good question, which keeps everybody worried, is about the data governance. And we have a question around, is there any data governance, including metadata management in Power BI?
Okay, very good question. So for data governance, I don't believe in any tool. It's more about process than tool. Yes, there are some tools in the Microsoft platform for data governance or master data management and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's more about putting in place right process and said, okay, who is the data owner and what roles and responsibilities they have, drawing line between different people and teams in IT and business. And then yes, you can use some tools, but Power BI itself doesn't have any data governance tool. But as I said, as part of Microsoft, you have a number of components, like you can use Master Data Services or MDS for that, or Azure Data Catalog, or a number of other things. But for me, the best data governance processes that I've seen are handled in a very simple tools, like even Excel. Because as long as you have a right process, the tool becomes secondary or not even more important than the process. And yeah, again, emphasizing on the process rather than the tool.
Thank you, Iman. The last question for this segment. This is around understanding whether Power BI can also capture and sync a user perspective. So there is an example given, for example, if somebody in a department performs a certain action, which might have been a part of the data model, but moves to a different department and performs a set of different actions. Would Power BI give that kind of an ability to, same user, different actions and different roles?
I'm not sure if I understand that quite right, because Power BI is all about reporting. If this is the question, that if I join a different team, will I get access to my previous reports or to the new environment? Then yes, there are a number of security options that you can create, workspaces and apps, and then have this role-based security for different people. And this can be managed by, like in Microsoft environment, you have Azure Active Directory or Active Directory AD that is basically managing all the roles and security permissions. So that's 100% part of Power BI integration, that you can use those AD groups, and you can integrate it with workspaces and apps that are basically like a folders or environment for different business functions or teams that you can create.
I think the question, thank you for that, Iman. The question was also about, the changing attributes as a user. Can Power BI handle that well?
Changing. Well, Power BI is not a data entry application, but there's part of the Power Platform, which is the bigger picture of the Power BI. There are other tools like Power App that can handle this part of data updating data or data entry, which can be embedded inside Power BI. So for instance, if you have some data entities or attributes that you need to update inside Power BI, you can do this using Power App, which is another component of this platform called Power Platform.
All
I
right,
know there are so many names and confusing with Power Automate, Power App, Power BI, Power Platform, but that's what Microsoft is. And you need to know all of those and the functionality of each tool. Thanks, Ankita.
Thank you.
So, okay, next is I wanted to just quickly show you a demo about what Power BI is. And let me see if you can see my screen with Power BI desktop now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is Power BI desktop. And by the way, Power BI desktop is a free application. You can simply go to powerbi.com, download, install it. If you want to just do some experiment, that's free. Desktop is for authoring and for building reports and data models. But as a BA, you get a chance to explore data, because when you work in a BI project, you need to get access to data to do some maybe data profiling, understand the quality of data, understand what data is available, and this is a fantastic tool for that. And by the way, everything that I showed you here except for visualization, you can do in Excel as well. So there's a component for each of those in Excel as well, and many people don't know those things exist. Okay, so this is good opportunity for you to also go and see and explore those features in Excel. Okay, so let's say that I'm a BA. I want to build or start building a prototype for maybe a BI project that they want to do some sales analysis. Okay, so for the simplicity, I'm connecting to an Excel file, but your data could be in any system. And the first step here is to get data. As you see in my screen, it will pop up in a second. You will see a lot of data connections from files, databases, cloud, on-premise, so on and so forth. So you can connect to even a lot of systems, like you may have, let's say, Salesforce, or you may work with Dynamics CRM or Google Analytics, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for this demo, I'm going to connect to Excel. So let's say my data is in here, but the process of connecting to any system is exactly the same. You may connect to a database. You just need to have database, server name and username, password, or you need to have access to that. So here you can see what data tabs, or in case of database, what are the views and tables available. You may select one or multiple of them, and then you can click on transform data, which opens up a new window for me. This is my Power Query that I mentioned to you as my self-service ETL, or extract, transform, load. So here you can do some data transformation. As you see on the ribbon, you can do something like grouping, transpose, pivot, unpivot, fill, empty, replace value. You may do split, formatting, extract part of the text, and so on and so forth. So this is a fantastic environment if you want to, play with data, you want to do some data massaging, cleansing, things like that. Okay, so let's say here you may have a column called product that has two components, a name and a number. And for your report, you may want to just split that and get rid of the number part. So simple as that, you can just go to split column by delimiter. In this case, it's a dash, or you can just say this is hyphen or dash. And now this is in two columns. You can delete one and just rename the other one to, let's say, product name. Simple as that. Now you have a clean data column for product name. And the important part is that everything that you do is captured here in the applied steps. So you can either undo, or you can go back and forth, or this could be a documentation of the process for your developers. So you can go to view advanced editor. Don't worry, this is a scary code, but You don't need to understand that. This is called M for Meshup. It's a language under the hood that Power BI works for this data transformation. But that's basically helping your maybe developers in building that into the proper ETL, that, okay, to get that right, you need to split column, you need to maybe change data type, you need to remove that column, or so on and so forth. Okay, so this could be a really good way to identify some of the data cleansing and massaging processes. Once you're happy with everything, then you can simply close and apply. I don't want to spend too much time on that because we are running out of time. I just want to show you a very quick end-to-end experience with Power BI, because again, two reasons for that. One is that you need to understand what is the process of building a report, so you get familiar with that. Also, for your rapid prototyping, you can use this, or for connecting to the source data or the systems that you can do some data exploration. Okay, so now I have all those data available. I can just quickly make sure that they are connected. Like, this is the data modeling part that usually, if this is for a real project, this could be the most important part and the most complex part, because you need to have a good data foundation. Okay, so you may just do some, okay, this connects to that. If you want to see sales by product, this is connected by product ID, and that's the what we call primary key or foreign key. But you may think about it as in Excel you have VLOOKUP, and you do lookup from this tab to that tab based on this common data item. Then you go to visualization tab, and that's where you can do all the fun to explore data and say, okay, I want to see what are the maybe top selling products. So you can select by maybe category, and then maybe add product under that, and say, okay, this is a nice column chart, but I want to change it to a bar chart. And then I want to be able to drill down and say, from one level, go to next level. Maybe I want to see the data labels here so I can see and read them. So that can give you a very nice, easy way to drag and drop, use all those, visualizations that you have out of the box, or you can click on get more visuals, so you can add more visualization from what people built and made it available. Okay, so it's a library of custom visuals that you can use. There's a lot of them that you can see, and with one click you can add them to your report. Okay, a lot of them are free. Some of them have this premium or pro feature, and some of them are useless, like this one. I don't know who wants to create this fish tank, but I've seen that, and believe me, I saw that in one of the very large IT exhibitions, that someone was showing this on the demo screen as an example of Power BI. So it's a bit embarrassing, but anyway, you can do some serious work as well. You can say, I want to see my revenue by, let's say, date. And I don't want this to be for year. I just select it for every day. And maybe I want to see on a line chart, so I can see some trends. I can go to Analytics tab, add the trend line. Maybe you can add average or anything that you want, mean, max, percentile, even forecasting, which is giving you one-click forecasting of that. Obviously, with one click, you don't expect it to be very accurate because there's a lot of assumptions, but that's probably good to impress your clients or managers to say, I've done some prediction. The next one might be you want to show this on a map, and with Power BI, you can have a lot of mapping options, including the basic, map that you have here, Azure Map, which works with Bing Map, with partnership with TomTom. So you need to be careful if there's a sensitive data. You don't want to use something third party, so you may not use this map. But there's no information sending to Microsoft other than coordinates. So don't worry about the sensitivity unless that's very sensitive data. Okay, so you may want to see revenue as a bubble, and you may want to add next level, which is zip code. So you can drill down. Let's say for California, I want to go down to each postcode in that area and see this on a map. The next, and this might be a bit too busy, so I change it to heat map so I can see this better. Okay. So the next question might be, I want to see what, the numbers, not just the visual. So I want to see the manufacturer, the units that I'm selling, and the revenue all in a like a table. But I also want to add quarter on the top. Similar to your Excel pivot table, you have this option to do this in Power BI. Let me just to make it less busy, I just go with units, and then maybe adding segment under that so you can drill down from one level to another. So again, I'm not going to show you too much details to confuse you, and this is not to do a training, but this is mostly to show you that you have very flexible tool. If you're familiar with Tableau, Click, this is very similar. You can just connect to any system, drag and drop, and build some good looking reports like this. And once you're done with that, you can send it or publish it to Power BI website, and then you can share with people to say, okay, can you have a look? This is my first prototype. Is it what you want? What is your feedback? And then capture that feedback and then go to the next iteration without spending too much time. It just probably took me a few minutes to do this. Obviously, this is a demo, but it shouldn't take, weeks or months to build something like that, right? So with that, let me just quickly do a couple of things. Like I may do some cosmetic stuff, like changing the font colors or the background and things like that. And then I use Format Painter to apply, because it's always good to have something good looking, even if it's a prototype. People like something that is very nice and tidy. So you may spend maybe 5 minutes to make it a bit nicer by adding, the right alignment, the size, and maybe adding a report title and some maybe branding if you want. So it's simple as that. You can do something like that with a good looking maybe view that you can share with your client or the end user. Okay. So again, there are a number of options here that you can do. You can add maybe a background image to make it with some branding. So if I add a page background, and this could be from our marketing. Okay, this is just a quick one. All right. So my point is that you go and build your first report prototype, then you share it with your client. You may get some feedback, and then they may say, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that we can do map, and that looks really cool. Can we also do this and that? Maybe can we have different map based on maybe LGAs, local government area, or LHDs, or whatever organization that you work with." And then you can go. You need to understand what are the limitations, what are the features, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's a quick demo about Power BI. As I said, once you build this, you can publish, and that becomes available by any user that you share this with. They can also connect to that by mobile device. You can optimize the mobile view if you want. Here you can say that if I go to mobile layout, this should be maybe on top, and maybe the next one could be this one. And I don't want to show map on the mobile view because it might be too busy, something like that. So you can control how a mobile app can interact with this. Okay, so that's it. We are right on time, 7:59. So the last slide is, before we get to Q&A, is, oh, sorry, not this one. This one. Okay, so I want to talk about one important thing, and I mentioned about adoption, because that's important for you as a BA to understand what's going to happen after you finish the project. Is this going to be adopted by people and they start using it or not? Otherwise, it will be waste of time for everyone, right? So you need to think about some of those important items, like the change management, training, support, are those things in place? Do you have a right plan? Do you know what are the training requirements for business? Do they have right level of knowledge to use this tool? Also, the governance, business processes, as I mentioned, eventually you want to embed it into a business process, and you need to have this in the plan to say, okay, how do I make it mandatory for people to, from, after go live, they don't go with the previous process that was very manual, because people don't like change, right? That's very normal, that no one likes to change the way they do things. So you need to actually have this in place, and all those thoughts needs to be, planned upfront to eventually have a data-driven culture in the organization. So there are some of the, change management frameworks that at Quer, you can see a lot of them. And you need to also understand the types of BI that you're building for organization. In some organizations, they are very specific and rigid about what they want. They do this type of top-down approach. So everything is managed and controlled by IT. Some of the organizations or business areas in the organization, they are very maybe flexible. They want something that is self-service and business can control it. And sometimes you may go with something in between, which is a hybrid approach. Maybe IT manage some of those data and semantic layers, and business can manage report, and they can self-service. They can do self-service. So the understanding of which area you are working with, and for this solution, maybe it could be one, two, or all of them, and you need to have a use case for each of those and say, okay, at the end of the project, you may have one or two or three of them, but this is the specific, type of people who can do self-service. This is some people who can do in the, just go to the report and maybe consume it. Okay. So just to sum it up, BI projects are different to normal software development. There's a lot of uncertainty in the beginning. BAs who work in the BI space need to understand the way BI works. Asking the right questions is very important, and always start with why. Microsoft Power BI is a market leader in the self-service BI and analytics. Again, it's not the only one, but now it's very popular, and this is probably something that we see a lot of organizations now using Power BI. Many organizations use the tools in a wrong way. So they may think that, okay, this is just a simple tool, so we can send people to one-day training and they can start building reports. Well, maybe they can, but is this number correct? Is this scalable? Is this in the right, maybe security or other things? BA needs to understand the adoption requirements, because that's very important to have a good adoption after you finish project, and also understanding the ownership and define the roles and responsibilities. And a good BA for BI needs to know data sources, systems, business functions, the domain knowledge, technology, and processes. So that's it for me. And I think we are a couple of minutes behind, but I'm happy to take any questions. Ankita?
Thank you, Iman. That was really wonderful. Good to see the tool as well. We do have time for Q&A. You are bang on time. So there have been a few queries around how the BA role itself should evolve with the Power BI tool. And I know the last slide sort of sums it all up, what a BA needs to know. But where does a BA stop the interaction, and where does the development actually begin? There are a few questions around what are the prerequisite skills, what is the BA supposed to be doing the development as well in terms of data modeling? Is that a...
Yeah, no, well, that's a very good question. And I can see that there's now a lot of overlapping between a BA and a developer. And in many cases, even smaller projects now, they use analyst developers, so someone who can do analysis and then develop it itself. But this is important that a person who is BA understand at least the functionality, as I said, be able to do some rapid development. It may not be a perfect, production quality solution, but it might be just something to show to people and say, okay, does it look like what you want? And again, this is a bit like a case by case, but in some cases I've seen BAs who are really good at, building something quickly, connecting to data, but it doesn't have to be on top of a solid foundation. And then once you want to make it production quality, you can hand it over to data modelers or BI experts to build it in a right way. So everything that you do in the prototyping, you can throw away. This is only to understand requirements, to showcase it as quick as possible, to get some feedback, and then you can do it in a right way, hand it over to consultants.
So when you say consultants, actually somebody who's well versed with developing the data models and all?
Yes. So sorry, when I say consultant, doesn't have to be a consultant from external. It could
No,
be
we'll call him on to do
yes.
that. Okay.
Yes.
Then there's another question around what do you think is a learning curve for if somebody has a good knowledge of Excel and a basic understanding of data modeling? What do you reckon is the learning curve for such a person to start creating reports in Power BI?
So when we talk about Excel, because Excel is also something that a lot of people say they know Excel, but they may just know very basics. So I would say if you're relatively advanced Excel user, like if you know even some basic functions like VLOOKUP, and you can do some of those data analysis in Excel, you can very quickly pick up Power BI, at least the basics to intermediate level. Maybe that data modeling takes more time because that comes with a lot of experience. But one thing that I didn't show you was the DAX language, which is the language of Power BI. So for instance, you can create a new measure and the calculation could be, I want to know my year-to-date data. So sales year-to-date equals, and then you can say this is my total, in this case year-to-date. Similar to Excel, as you see, there's a good IntelliSense autocomplete, and it tells you that there's such function total year-to-date that can give you accumulated number for, in this case, revenue, sum of revenue, sorry. And sum is a function in Excel. So it's very similar. It's not really that much different that you can do this. So this is for date, and that's it. So if I add this, now I have a new measure that you can use for sales year to date. Instead of that, I can just remove and add year to date. Okay, obviously we don't need the trend line. And yeah, that's basically showing you how easy it is to add this. So to answer your question, if someone knows Excel very well, those functions are almost identical in most cases. Yes, DAX has a lot more functions, and there's a website that you can go and see some of those, like there's a reference website called dax.guide that has list of all the DAX functions. But I can see a lot of Excel users that now are moving to Power BI very easily. If you know some of the foundational parts of Excel, you can easily learn Power BI. But again, like anything else, it's a journey. So don't expect yourself to just go to one-day training and learn everything. It's just like a maybe process that you have to keep practicing. And there are plenty of online resources, free training. Now you can go to Udemy, edX. You can go to even Microsoft website. Under Microsoft website, Power BI, you have guided learning, powerbi.com. So you don't have to go to expensive courses like us. You can just simply go to maybe something like, in this case, resources, learn, and then there are a lot of learning here from webinars, documentation, or guided learning, which is a very good resource to get up to speed with some of the paths. So there's a learning path for developers, for data analytics, for other type of things, and you can say that become a data analyst. So there's like a nice categories of items that you can say, I want to become a data analyst. What are the learning paths? And then you can go and explore. These are the items, preparing data, modeling data, visualizing, and so on and so forth. And then you can get a certificate if you want. There's an exam called DA100 that gives you a certification in Power BI that you can do with one exam in Microsoft. Okay, and each of those steps, as you see when you click, there's a lot of very bite-sized topics that you can either watch some of the videos or you can read them with example and sample data. So plenty of resources, and I definitely recommend that you start with some of those free training, especially the one in the Microsoft website. And then once you get to a good level of understanding, then you can take it to next level to go by going to a course or maybe practicing as part of your day-to-day job.
Thank you, Iman. That's really helpful. I think there were a lot of questions and queries around how to sort of get to do some self-training and learning. Thank you for showing those resources. One last question before we can close off for the day. We've talked a lot about all the good things that Power BI brings to the table, but maybe if you can throw some light on the issues with self-service BI or any known constraints and challenges, that would be great.
Sure. So I categorize it in two areas. One is the technology limitation, which is like any other technology, there are some limitations. And Power BI is same. Like if you have, let's say, Power BI Pro license, which is the basic license option for Power BI, you can only load up to 1 gig per data set inside Power BI cache. Yes, you can also have some other connection types. You can connect directly to your database or have a different architecture to go to almost unlimited data size. But that's less important because, as I said, the technical limitations, there's always a workaround, or there's other, going to next level of license or doing some other, techniques to overcome that. The main challenge that I see in Power BI is that people get excited when they see that, oh, okay, that's so simple. I just drag and drop and build this. And they think that they are Power BI expert, and they start, putting this into the real production or things like that. But next day, next month, or next year, they hit some, challenges or limit, or they may find that, oh, okay, the foundation was not right, especially with the data modeling. That I see this a lot because people from business background, they come and they can build the same good looking dashboard, but the underlying data model might be very badly designed, that it may not perform well, it may be inaccurate, or it may not scale when you want to work with large volume of data. So these are things that I see a lot, that people get excited about visualization, but this is only the tip of the iceberg. They don't see a lot of foundational work that you need to do. In fact, more than 80% of the time and effort that we do in the projects are not in the reporting, it's in the foundational piece. How to get data, how to build all the data pipelines, make it clean, transforming, and add the business logic and security and things like that. So those parts can easily be, I believe, in some cases, people don't care about those because maybe marketing manager just wants to see some numbers. Okay, so you may say, okay, don't worry about those things. I just built a report for you for that. So that's something you need to always think about. There's a lot more than just the visualization that you see.
Thank you so much, Iman. I think that wraps up most of the questions. For any other further questions from the attendees, please feel free to reach Iman. We would share the slide pack with you, and that would have Iman's details. I'll hand over to Abe now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita.
Thanks, Ankita. Thanks, Iman. I'll just take over the screen share if that's okay, Iman. Thanks, everyone, for attending tonight's event. I think I got a lot out of it, and I wouldn't say I'm a Power BI expert now, but I'm a step closer, I guess. The next events are listed here. So the first one being the annual general meeting, so the AGM, which is being held on Tuesday, 24th of November. If you're an existing IABM member, please feel free to register through Eventbrite. Currently, the director elections are running, and these will close this week on Sunday night. For any details, please reach out to the Australian chapter website, and the website's listed there. The next event will be the Process Pioneers Process Management Top 5 Takeaways, and that's going to be held in December, on December 2. And the speaker then will be Daniel Rania. That's it from us here at IIBA. Thank you again for attending tonight's event. And like what Ankita mentioned, you will receive a post-event survey. Upon completing that survey, you will receive both the slide deck and also tonight's screen recording. Thanks, everyone. Good night.